Is make this sort of a town hall format where you guys ask questions. You have questions there?
I have a few handwritten questions.
Right.
The first one I think is going to be a quick and easy one. For Joe, are you still being hassled by the media?
Okay, I'm Joe. That's Kevin. We switch off like that because people can't tell us apart.
Yeah, whenever I go up to events, I was in Wisconsin when that whole thing happened with Scott Walker. You know, the media jumps on me whenever they get the chance to. Google alerts, my fiance put me on that, and you know, usually there's probably about 20 things a day written about me. Some good, a lot bad. You know, still don't have my license. I'm a tax dodger. I'm a racist. You know, a lot of things like that still come about. In fact, actually, when I was in Wisconsin, I had to leave fairly quickly because the union was calling and threatening my family at home. You know, I filed a police report and all that good stuff. But no, if you're gonna stick your neck out there and speak, you know, it's gonna come. It comes with it, and that's okay because all the union guys that live in my neighborhood, man, God Almighty, they would tear up anybody trying to come to my house. You know, it doesn't represent all union members. Just, you know, like anywhere, you got kooks and everything. So I don't have any animosity towards them. The leadership, absolutely, but union people in general, no, not at all. But it does come with it.
When you go to black organizations to speak, they're liberal, primarily liberal. How do you deal with that? How do you bring forward what your interests are and what your background is and so forth? How do you deliver that to them, and what is the response?
Okay, so black organizations, typically you're going to speak to a church, or you'll speak to the NAACP or the Urban League, and you know, things like that. I got invited to speak, or I was supposed to get invited to speak to the NAACP here in Atlanta, and they canceled it. They read something I wrote, and they said, "We're going to get you. We want you to come speak." And I gave them my speaking fee, and I said, "I'd love to come speak there," and they canceled. So didn't speak there. I speak at high schools, and I've spoken at. We did a session at a college when I was getting my fellowship at the Dole Institute. And it was mainly we had one of our audience was the Black Student Union of Kansas University, extremely liberal, and in churches. But at the end, it doesn't really matter what they are; it all ends up being the same. So you can't address issues in the normal way. And by the way, you can't even say Obama this, because as soon as you say that and it looks like it's negative, you get a lot of grief. So essentially what you have to do is you have to put it in terms that these kids typically understand, or that audience understands. And I'll usually ask questions like, you know, do you want to be rich? Is anybody here on a business? And they own a business. I say, why are you in business? Are you in business for profit, or are you in business to spread the wealth? You know, and if you're, and by the way, let me ask you this: does anybody here make below, you know, $20,000 a year? Yeah. Anybody make above $20,000 a year? Okay. Well, you should hand them some money. It's that simple. Now, I know that sounds trivial, and we all know that that's a silly way to do it, but it really does boil down to that. And what I explain to them is this: when the government puts you on a program, on a dole, so let's say if you are hurt and you're on disability, you can't make any more. If you're on Social Security or whatever, you can only make so much if you're joining Social Security. They put a ceiling on you that says, don't do it. But I will promise you that ceiling will never be what you really need to do your job, to live. There's nobody living on welfare that goes, ooh, welfare, ooh, this is great. You know, there's always a little more. So here's what happens. In the black community, we have what's called, we have a hustle. And so your hustle might be, you go down to the flea market, you burn illegal DVDs, and you sell them for $3 a piece. All right? Or your hustle might be that you go off the clock because you're a good plumber or you're an electrician or whatever, and you can't technically work, but you go do your hustle. Now what has happened is, you are now in violation of federal law. You are now a ward of the government, because anybody can put you in jail. Federal pen. And people don't really realize what's going on, but that's what the government does. It's essentially making the potential to enslave you, to put you away in jail. That's what the system is set up for. So they give you a little bit, but they tell you, don't go above that. And if you go, and by the way, there are whistleblowers who will report you because they don't like you. That does happen. So anyway, that's how I tend to tell them. I try to explain the game, because government really is a game.
Why do you believe the Republicans are so apprehensive and so fearful of really speaking to that point of how to secure our borders? Whether it's a non-white issue or a black issue, it doesn't matter. It's a security issue of the Americans, the citizens of America. And I ask that question actually coming from a background of, I am a legal immigrant, and my parents came here from Africa. So I'm not politically correct in my fortitude when it comes to this type of issue. It's dear to my heart because it's the security of this great nation that is at risk. And I just want a true Republican, irrespective of party, a true conservative, one that's God-fearing, to speak to that point of why we have to secure our border and educate the audience or the audiences of the importance of securing our border.
It's actually a real simple answer. Race and power. That's all it comes down to, race and power. Yes, part of it is race, to where you mentioned illegal immigration, you must hate Mexicans then. And so it's a racial issue, and a lot of Republicans shy away from it in that regards. Other regard is comes down to power. You know, Republicans keep a certain amount of power with that on the table. They use it as a bargaining chip. They go back and forth. These guys are making deals left and right in Washington. And so we give here, we'll take there. We'll take there, you give here. And it truly is just another chip on the table to be bounced back and forth. It's going to take a lot of us. You know, I have a voice, Kevin has a voice, like I said before. We have a platform, and there's some other of us out there. Andrew Breitbart, he has a voice, conservatives in general. You know, but ultimately it's going to be you taking it at your community, and really being involved in your community, then going to state and then to federal. Change happens from the bottom up. It's not going to go from the top down. And so truly being involved and making sure your children stay involved and your neighbors around you stay involved.